I just wanted to do a video. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about adjusting their suspension on their sleds, and I wanted to go through a quick rundown of what I did. When you first get your sled, everything, all the preloads are going to be set to the softest setting. So like on your front shocks, they're all going to be set at 1. This has the quick adjust, so that's going to be set at 1. If you don't have the quick adjust, it's all frozen down underneath here, but there'll be a block right here that has 4 different positions on it, and that adjusts your preload for your rear suspension. And down in underneath here is center shock, so that's just a threaded shock. It's got a little collar on it. As it goes down, it's putting more preload on the spring. As it goes up, it's softening the ride. So if you're like me, you probably don't want to read your owner's manual. Maybe you bought a used snowmobile, doesn't have one. The limiter strap. So what this does is it allows, it determines how far the front of your skid can come away from your tunnel. Adjusting this out is going to allow the skid to travel away from the snowmobile further. It's going to give you better deep powder starts. A disadvantage to that is it sends more weight to your center shock or center spring, and it takes weight off the skis. So if you're pushing in the corners, the first thing you can do is loosen your center shock, the preload on your center shock. It should be pretty much just barely any tension there. Like you can see when I'm not on my sled, I can move the spring. If you do that and you're still pushing in the corners, you're gonna have to tighten your limiter strap. And there is actually, in the owner's manual, there is a breakdown of how this is, well, they call it the stopper strap, but it's this is what I would call a limiter strap, or some people would call a limiter strap. So it has a bolt on the bottom of it, and you're going to see three pieces of strap going through that bolt. One of them is just a dead end. The center one's a dead end, comes down to the rod and stops, and then the other 2 are the 2 ends that actually hold the strap. There'll be 4 different slots for that to go into. As you adjust it, all you're going to do is this bottom strap here, you're just going to pull that down around. The center one stays where it's at. You pull this one down around, so the hole that is here will now be here, and that will be your second position, and that's shown here. So see, the center one stays, you bring this one down and around, and then put your bolt through again. So that would be the next tightest position. I've actually already tightened mine up one. When I first got the sled, I mean, with one finger you could turn the handlebars. Now it takes a little bit more effort. It is sitting on something, it's a OSB, it's fairly stiff, so, but I do have a lot more pressure there now. I've also tightened my preload on my rear spring. Just watch as you do that, because when you are on your sled, you only want your rear snow flap about 1 inch off the snow. So if that's much more than 1 inch off the snow, a lot of your snow is going to be evacuating from your tunnel, and you're not going to be getting the cooling or the lubrication you need for your tunnel. Just keep an eye on that. As you do tension up your rear spring, just make sure you're not lifting your snow flap too high up off the ground, because you'll have trouble with overheating. Another thing I've done is I've put a little bit more preload on my front shocks as well, and that just gives it a stiffer feel in the corners. I like it a little bit, the front suspension a little bit more stiff, so I can play on it, get it up on one ski. If you don't want it to come up on one ski, a softer front suspension will allow the sled to kind of roll in the corners a little bit, but the skis stay on the ground. The sled just kind of tilts with your corner. Keep in mind too, as you adjust your front suspension or your center shock and your limiter strap, if this is all the way out and you have a lot of tension on this center shock, that skid's going to be constantly pushing away from the snowmobile, and you'll get a lot of wear your Hyfax right here and right here, both sides of the bogey wheels, because that's where all the tension's going to be. So it will give you better off-trail performance and a lot lighter ski pressure, but just keep an eye on your Hyfax if you're going to run that much tension on that spring. The last thing is this block. See it on the R-Motion suspension, and that's just the transfer block. One is lots of weight transfer, so that's going to allow your suspension to come sit back on the skid and allow the front of the snowmobile to feel lighter. If you don't want a lot of transfer as you punch it, if you don't want a lot of transfer, you want a higher number. So 4 would be the least amount of transfer that you can have. And all you do is just, mine's all frozen, but pull out on that little tab right here, and then you can rotate, but it only does one side at a time. So any adjustments you make on this side, make the same adjustment on the other side. So hopefully that helps some of you guys get your suspensions set up. Just keep in mind small adjustments. Go out, ride it, bring it back in, make another adjustment if you need to. Try not to go too much, because a little is a lot. You can make a big change to your handling by just changing what's going on with your suspension. So I'll see you out on the trails.